novel 1984 by George Orwell, Orwell predicts that people would be desensitized to violence due to the violence constantly happening around the characters in 1984. The violence in the novel includes hangings, executions by gun, beating, and torture. Here are some of the examples of desensitization to violence throughout Orwell's 1984. Audience much amused by shots of a great huge fat man trying to swim away with a helicopter after him. First you saw him wallowing along in the water like a porpoise. Then you saw him through the helicopter's gun sights. Then he was full of holes and the sea around him turned pink. Orwell 8. Then there was a wonderful shot of a child's arm going up, up, up. Right up into the air, a helicopter with a camera in its nose must have followed it up. And there was a lot of applause from the party seats. Orwell 9. "Why can't we go and see the hanging?" roared the boy in his huge voice. "Want to see the hanging, want to see the hanging," chanted the little girl, still capering around. Orwell 23.
Experiment is that playing a violent video game, even for 25 minutes, has a significant effect on the brain's response to violence, indicating a desensitization process.
Desensitization to violence in video games has been a problem in the U.S. since the Columbine Massacre in 1999. The massacre happened when two teens went on a shooting spree at the Columbine High School in Colorado and killed 13 and wounded more than 20 before committing suicide. There is speculation that the two gunmen who committed the killings committed them due to desensitization to violence in video games. Since then, there have been 3 other shootings related to desensitization to violence in video games, including the Aurora, Colorado theater shooting in 2012. According to the American Psychological Association, or APA, in 2015, 97% of children ages 12 to 17 play video games, and 85% of video games on the market contain violence. Here are currently some of the most popular violent video games on the market. Some other violent games are Fallout 4, Rainbow Six Siege, and Grand Theft Auto 5. In 2011, a study was done at the University of Missouri where they had 70 young adult participants assigned to play a violent video game like Battlefield 1 or a non-violent video game like FIFA for 25 minutes. Immediately after, scientists would measure the participant's brain responses while the participant looked at a series of neutral photos. Then the researchers would give the participant a series of violent photos to look at. Finally, the participants competed against another participant in a task that allowed them to give their opponent a controllable blast of a loud noise. The level of the blast noise set for their opponent was the participant's aggression level. The researchers found that the participants that played the violent video game set a louder noise blast for the opponent during the task. The participants that played the violent video games were more aggressive. The researchers also found that some participants did not get affected during the experiment. The researchers at the University of Missouri said it could be one of these possibilities. The participants who were not affected have already played too many video games and are exposed to desensitization, and there is a possibility that one of the participants who wanted to play the violent video game was assigned to play the non-violent video game. The American population that plays video games is growing, and so is the demand for violent video games. According to the essential facts about the computer and video game industry, in 2015, 155 million Americans regularly play video games, and 42% of those Americans play at least 3 hours per week. So how can we stop people from becoming desensitized to violence in video games? In 2011, the Supreme Court took on the case of Brown versus the Entertainment Merchants Association. Representatives of the major video game industries filed a pre-enforcement challenge against Jerry Brown, the governor of California. There was a law in the state of California that restricted the sale or rental of mature games to minors. the Supreme Court decided that the law violated the rights of the First Amendment. Putting parental locks on video games is one way to help people not become desensitized, but it is very easy for a child to find the passcode, or the parents might not care and they will give their child the passcode for the lock. The ESRB is an entertainment software rating board. They rate all the video games before they come out. They assign the appropriate age and content ratings for the consumer, but they need to put more detail into their ratings to specifically reflect the levels of violence in the games for people's awareness. We will also have to spread the word to people in public, like in schools, businesses, and community events, to show people the facts about how easy it is for people to be desensitized to violence in video games.